Welcome to another episode of the Unconventional Christian Podcast, and I am a host, Ladun, Thompson, and we are sitting with the amazing Dr. Cheryl Hardy. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
That's good.
Real good.
We've been trying to get you here for a little while, but to God be the glory. You're here, and we're able to do it and have this conversation. And I think that it's important to talk about, some of the things that have occurred in this time, because one of the main reasons that we were unable to do the podcast is because specifically you got sick.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
Tell us about that.
What an experience. And I stayed home and I took care of myself and was in the house. And the only place I went to was the grocery store. And for some reason, I just started feeling bad. And, you don't have anything to compare with because COVID-19 is something new.
Right.
I thought I had the flu.
Exactly.
But I felt myself draining, moving further and further down, and I had to go to the doctor. The doctor said, "Why don't you take a test?" And when they said positive, I was like, "Positive?
Started questioning
Who's
where'd
positive?"
you go?
And it was so funny when the doctor came in with two. And I was like, "Oh boy," because when they come in with two or more, they have some news.
Right.
Because that's the setup. Just in case one person you get upset, they back up there to support each other.
Right.
So I knew the drill. I said, "Oh boy, 14 days."
Wow.
Yeah, but I'm so glad to be alive. You know what? I think it changed my way of thinking.
And what was that?
To appreciate life more in a different way. My gratitude level went up.
Really?
Yeah.
I would say for somebody that I've known from afar for such a long time, I actually thought I would think that your gratitude level couldn't get any higher than it was.
Your gratitude level can always get higher and higher because sometimes we get comfortable even being positive. Mm-hmm. We can be at a flow and think things are okay and I'm good. But if something hits you, you realize that things could be better and you could think better. Yeah.
Right.
Most certainly.
Now, with your journey through COVID, so now after finding out that you were positive, you just had to do the 14 days at home? Did you have to go to the hospital? Because I remember hearing about it. I think when we first heard it, it was almost like, I think it was introduced to us was almost like, yo, Dr. Cheryl's on her deathbed. And it was like, what? And I was shocked. You know what I mean? So
I was really sick.
Right.
Yeah, I was really sick. I couldn't, I almost need help going to the bathroom, just to have that. But nobody could really help me because they had to stay away.
Right.
So I had to just run in the bathroom, run out. I had a whole little section of the house by myself. And it was so funny. They would, my sons would come, they would give me breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they would put it by the door and then run.
Right.
Yeah. So, but this thing is really, really serious. I think it's getting better now because they're understanding it more and with the vaccinations.
Because it's completely different now. So when I say for you, having to deal with that and deal with that at home by yourself, how were you able to implement your faith into those moments? Because, we talk about faith all the time and we feel strong in our faith until it's time to activate it. You know what I mean? And even being the most positive person, being a person of faith, being a person that talks about manifestations and talks about the power of the mind, how was your faith affected during this time?
And so that's why I was thinking about my gratitude level has heightened because I had faith, but I had to apply it in a different way.
Right.
So I had to apply it in this valley moment.
Right.
Because, you hear, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you feel like it's the shadow of death because so many people had died. Over 500,000 people had died. So you think you're next. So that thought will automatically come. But then you start thinking about faith.
Right.
And start using those healing scriptures and start reading about healing and it just puts you in a different place. But we have to apply it. It's easy to, I've been, so this is what I love about unconventional Christians. I don't want to get to that. I want to ask you that question in a minute, but you could be a Christian for a long time, but just have the label and not apply it to your life.
Right. No, that's real. I think that and I have these and one of the main reasons why we have these conversations for this, even with this podcast, is to be able to show different aspects in life and walks of faith and how that looks for some people, because everyone does not identify with the black and white faith that once was maybe 30, 40 years ago. That's now right. It's more, a lot of people do deal with levels of faith where they're not going into the church a lot of time, but they do have faith. Some people do have a lot of faith and they don't go into church every single day. You know what I mean? It's a time and day and age where we have to become the church internally. You know what I'm saying? This is our house. This is God's house. Don't get me wrong. I do believe that it's important for people to go into the house of God. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? To congregate with other believers as well. But whatever that faith looks like for you. You know what I mean? Some people they've had such bad experiences and traumas from church in their past, in their childhood, that has affected their ability to be able to go back into the church. So that's why I said, that touches on like the unconventional faith that must be had.
So as our fingerprints are different, so as we believe in different ways.
Right.
And so one of the things that we have to do is not put people in a box.
Right.
Because you don't know how a person's faith is.
Right.
So my question was to you, I was thinking, is what made you come up with this Unconventional Christian Podcast? Because I think that is such a great idea. I think this is excellent.
Right. I mean, for me, I think it's, and I bounce back and forth between specific churches sometimes, just because I like to hear different things from different angles. So like my home base was Love of Jesus Christian Church in Newark, and my virtual space has been the Change Church by Darius Daniels.
Yes.
So, me and him have developed a relationship. He's in the mentor space for me. And I think that it's so important for people to become Daniels in the world. And it's something he talks about. We've been talking a lot about Daniels in the world, is that you're not this, you're someone who can go into the depths of where sinners are and unbelievers are and become love in the midst of that. You know what I'm saying? Not everyone can do that, because a lot of people have vices that they can fall short on. And not to say that I don't have vices, but I do have people around me that are constantly checking me while I'm in a space. People that can reel me back in. It's almost like having people around you that have ropes around you as you go deep into this space, to make sure that you don't get 100% pulled, that you don't get in too deep. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
because you want to stay in your harmony and your rhythm. I know people talk about life, work, and balance, but a lot of times balance, that's not, you can't find your balance.
Right.
And so your balance might be off for that day, and then people criticize themselves.
Right.
So that's why I believe in having your rhythm and your harmony for every day. Because I feel like that is important. And I think that people should have their own village. So I'm so impressed that you have a mentor, because I have a mentor, a therapist, and a coach.
Absolutely. It's important. I tell people all the time, friends around me, get you, I say it all the time, get you a mentor. I have a therapist. I'm transitioning from one therapist to another. I've seen you for a session as well. I think it's so important to constantly sharpen your tools.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Especially your spirit. You know what I'm saying?
And you need that village.
Yeah. So, and then I have accountability partners that are a lot of them aren't even based in New Jersey. We talk on Zoom, we talk on the phone, we FaceTime, we have these conversations where we're constantly asking ourselves, is in this stage of our life, does these things still serve a purpose in my life? You know what I'm saying? I am a Christian. I am somebody that does drink alcohol. You know what I'm saying? But I have these conversations, and right now I haven't found a reason to say I'm cutting alcohol out completely, because I do it in moderation. But in the same token, as I get in certain spaces, there is that level of conviction that happens when you're having conversations with people and your accountability partners, and we're talking and we have these conversations. We both may drink and we'll say, yo, do we even need this anymore? Does it serve a purpose in our life? Can you find excitement without it? So, you know, and I try not to put that judgment out on people as well. Right. Because when I go in spaces, that's the first thing. That's what they've heard. As soon as they hear "don't stop drinking," their childhood trauma takes them back to church when somebody vilified you, and that's what's pushed them into that space now. You know what I'm saying? Some of them lean more into it specifically because of those moments and those times. So the unconventional part of me wants to, like, it's 1 Corinthians 9:22, so the weak I became weak. You know what I mean? So I can draw them closer. You know what I'm saying? But that's why I surround myself with people that even to the weak I became weak, I still have to be able to strengthen myself in those spaces.
To move, yeah.
And
to allow yourself to know that we change. Your body change every 7 years, right? And so your conscious change every 7 years, your intellect change every 11 years, and your lifespan change every 18 years. We need to allow ourselves, like your 7, 14, 21, it changes. Your intellect every 11, 22, it changes. And so, and the same thing with lifespan. We think lifespan is from infant to the time you pass, but it's every 18 years.
Right.
And so the first 18 years, what do? You're under somebody, listening to somebody all your entire 18 years.
Right.
And then the next 18 years, you're trying to find yourself, you know?
Wow.
And then the next 18 years, you're ready to retire.
And it happens just like that.
It happens just like that. So in the process, I think that even in parenting, I think we should give more space to allow to have great communication.
Right.
You know, because changes continue to come. A person doesn't stay an infant forever. And so sometimes as adults, we even parenting adult children,
right.
You know, I have grown sons. I have to monitor myself. And when I say certain things, it's not the time to say that. They're adults now.
Right.
And I felt like I did a good job. So it's time for me to fall back and allow them to, I trust them. I trust their decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that it's tough being a mom, being a wife, being in a place of mental health and trying to separate the two, because a lot of times you can identify something.
Yeah, I can see certain things.
Yeah, seeing patterns, but being able to talk and advise people on that without them saying you're dissecting them is a hard journey. But I do think that one thing I'll say about you is I think you're able to give all of your experience and advice with love. You know, I've seen it, you know what I'm saying, and how you deal and how you deliver. Yeah. So, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I was like, it's important to have you come on here and have this conversation, because you have the experience. We're talking about 40 years of experience in relationships, mental health. And you've been married for how long?
It'll be 42 years next month.
42 years of marriage, 40 years of experience
in the mental health
health field. Yeah. So you come with a lot of knowledge.
And I want you all to have a better life.
Right.
When I see the young folks, I don't want you to worry. I mean, being Black in America is a strain.
Right. Constantly.
You know, and I always ask African American men at the end of my session, how do it feel to be a Black man in this society? And we open up the floodgates.
Right.
Because they always say, no one asked me that. Because it's the fight outside the house. First of all, it's the fight growing up. Being a young boy, and then the fight outside the house, and then the fight as you have relationships. So it's a lot to endure. So it's good to just have conversation. Communication is amazing. Mm-hmm. The more you talk, the more you empty out, the more you heal. And healing is so important.
It is important. And the amazing thing now is that in our community, I mean, how exciting is it to you as a therapist to see how much mental health is now beginning to be a very vital and important conversation that's constantly flowing now?
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm glad you have me here for a Mental Health Awareness Month, because this is the last couple of days and it'll be over, but yet still we need to continue on with the mental health process. But it's so important. It is so important. So, because we forget to get a checkup from the neck up.
Right.
We'll take care of the body, but with the head, we years ago if you had mental health concerns, they would call it demons in the church.
Right.
They would say something is wrong with you, but it's not something. The fact that it's something wrong, it's just that it needs to be treated.
Right.
And you need to talk about it and release it. And a lot of times people don't. They hold things in them for years, and it comes out in anger. It's going to come out one way or the other. Anger, alcohol, sex, drinking. It's going to come out. And so for you to realize self-awareness is amazing, and self-assessment and talking to someone, and like you said, accountability, we all need that.
Right.
Yeah.
In what ways in our community can we optimize mental health? As far as the black and brown community, in what ways can we optimize mental health awareness?
Number one, I think taking away the stigma and allowing people to be themselves. And if you suffer from depression, and sometimes it is generational depression. It's depression from great grandma, it just comes on down. And so how can we talk about depression? What is depression? Because a lot of times we throw words around and don't know the meaning. It's a feeling of sadness and being at a low state or a moment with a situation or a place or a thing or something that occurred in your life.
Right.
All right. So those moments come for all of us.
Right.
And so I think we just need to be more open about it. Because years ago, they used to say depression, they could tell it in a 5-year-old. And then with technology, they could tell depression in a 6-month. Now they can detect depression in the womb.
Really?
And so that's how powerful technology is, and how behavioral science is. They could tell with the babies in the womb. You do a sonogram and you're talking to them and they shriveling up and covering their face. There's those signs of depression. Somebody is arguing, somebody is fighting all the time, because you can see the baby moving a lot when they hear certain voices. And so if you can detect depression before you get here, could you imagine once you're born, that baby is carrying the parents' woes, and then they go to school and say, why I feel like this, or they walking around, why do I feel like this? It's because there's just been so much on them with the emotions, just the feelings alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's deep. So now this goes into something I've been saying about how depression, how the body takes count, right?
The body keeps score.
The body keeps score.
The body keeps score. It keeps score your trauma, and your depression and your hurt.
So now, how does this come out physically for some people? How does depression, resentment, anger, how does this come out in some people? How do they feel this physically?
That's a good question, because it comes out in so many different ways. It could come out in anger. It could come out in isolation, feeling rejected. It could come out with your health. Most people that suffer from depression, usually it affects their stomach. So your stomach, your intestines, your kidneys, your lungs, and your colon. You're like, what is going on in my body? It's all connected to that sadness or that loneliness or those states of depression.
Right. So now with our community, there are a lot of people who are dealing with this, and I think that the hardest part is a lot of couples, friends, family members can identify this in someone. What is your suggestion to those people? Because the hardest part is you can identify it, but how do you suggest or even get someone to make those steps without causing them to run away from it? Because the first thing we do is sometimes we don't know how to deliver. It's about the constructive criticism of it. Like it's not even criticism, but giving love and saying, hey, I think you're going through this. And the minute they may already know they're going through this. So as soon as you say it to them, they're running from you. So how does someone get their family member, their friend, their significant other to step out of the denial phase?
So usually because you can't make people get the help, but usually when someone asks me that question, I would say we need to change our language. Mm-hmm. So I would, like, a lady called me and she was like, how can I get my mother to come? She really needs to come. And I told her that she need a therapist and she need a counselor. And I said, no, let's try it this way. I said, Mom, you know I love you. And there are some additional support I would love for you to have. So it's just, don't say counseling. Say, I want you to go get additional support or support, and I'll pay for the first session. Usually people start thinking, they say, you know what? Maybe I will try it.
Right.
But we just have to change our language. Our language is so harsh. And what we have to realize is when you have a tough language, it changes your mental health. It changes the way you think.
Right.
So if you say, I'm always stupid, you're going to think that.
Right.
You know, if you say, like somebody came to me one time, quite a few people come to me and said, you know what, I know I have generational curses in my family. I said, let's change the words and let's say generational pattern. Now you here to break the pattern.
Right.
You know I have crazy people in my family. Don't say crazy. Let's say you have colorful people in your family, and then let's try to make some changes. It's all about how we say things, because if you say it harsh, people will run and get defensive or offended.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, in leaning more into this a little bit, because I think that a lot of people have these questions. Now, when it comes to trauma, now a lot of people can identify that they have trauma from their childhood. They have, especially let's start with childhood trauma, because it's something that's been a conversation that has been popping up. How does one begin to deal with their childhood trauma? Because a lot of people do know that they have it, but they just don't know how to deal with it. Besides, because a lot of people don't have access to therapy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now, what's some steps that you would give to someone when it comes to, if they were watching this today, what's some steps that you would give to them as far as dealing with their childhood traumas?
And not go to therapy, because trauma, you really need to unpack it with a trained professional. But if not, I would say start with journaling and write down the traumatic parts of your life. And then on the other side, write down some ways you think you can make changes. But with trauma takes some time.
Right.
And so sometimes it's difficult for some people could just work through it with self-help books.
Right.
And then others, they just need that assistant, because we need to pinpoint where that traumatic event is coming from. Is it trauma from sexual trauma? Is it trauma from abuse?
Right.
Is it childhood trauma from being bullied?
Right.
And once you unpack that, then you have to start realizing that those things that happened to you was not your fault. And if you could release it little by little and say, or even if you write the trauma on a piece of paper, I was traumatized with XYZ, and that will happen no more, and maybe tear the paper up and just throw it away and just start working on it, because you got to work on it daily.
Right.
Or every couple of days, or even weekly, but it can't be a once a month thing.
Right.
Because you have to realize that childhood trauma if you're 30 and you had childhood trauma, it stayed in you. It's packed in you for years. Yeah. At least 20 years.
Yeah. So, yeah. Because one thing I've heard is that when dealing with childhood traumas, it's not that you're learning to get rid of it. You're learning how to manage it.
And deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like, let me first unpack.
You got to unpack it.
That's the first step.
You got to talk about it. Or if you don't go to a therapist, talk to a trusted friend.
Right.
Somebody that you trust, that you can just empty out with, and you know it's not going anywhere.
Right.
Because that's when healing takes place. Because we need to learn as a people how to feel.
Right.
We run from our feelings.
Absolutely. And
so we don't want to. I want to feel when somebody passed away. I'll just work, or stay busy. But you got to feel, deal, and heal. Feel the pain, deal with the situation, so you can heal.
Right. Now, I have some specific questions, because I think you're the first therapist we've had on here. that's actually like specialized in this. Sexual trauma. How do women? No, you know what? I'll take that back because men suffer sexual trauma as well.
Yes,
so let's try and make this a little general. When it comes to sexual trauma, how does sexual trauma show up in adulthood?
In your behavior, the way you act in relationships. Mm-hmm. And if the sexual trauma is if you're a female and the trauma was from a female, you'll have struggles with a female-female relationship. If it's from a male, you'll have, if you're a female and then it's a male, you'll have struggles with so it will be in relationships. You know, say for instance, when someone says that my grandmother sexually abused me and she's a girl, people is like, wow, how can your grandmother sexually? It happens. Right. And so now that person has a struggle with all older women because that sexual trauma is embedded in her. Right. And so that's when we have to unpack and start talking about those relationships. The longest relationship you're going to have in life is with yourself. Right. And so after you deal with yourself and tell you that things are going to get better, that's when they start getting better, because you got to seek help, though. Because that's sexual trauma is something that is. And then when the person is in a relationship, right, it's hard for them in a relationship. Okay. Even when they connect sexually, intimacy, holding hands and all, that's usually some type of concern, because it's not the other person, it's what they're fighting on the inside because they've been violated.
So the levels of consistency aren't going to be there in a relationship. So it's either going to be hyper or hypo.
Yes.
So it's like either they're going to be giving too much sexual energy, yes, or there will be almost little to none. That's there. Right. So it's like yeah, that kind of goes into that dopamine. Medium. Yeah. Like there's that level of consistency is not there. It's either high or super low.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you ever see a person when they behave, they're either super quiet or they go off. Right. So yeah. And that's how you will react in a relationship.
Okay. Cool. That's
And so it's difficult to say, because when I'm talking to a person, you almost as a therapist customize things. Right. So with this person, I might use one theory, and another person, I might use another theory, and another person, I might not use a theory at all. I might just have to go into a lot of deep stuff of what happened, at 5, at 6, at 7. And then you have to move at a pace, because you can't move too fast, because it's overwhelming, too, when a person is being abused of any kind.
Right. Okay, good. This is good stuff right here. I'm telling you, this is some deep stuff that I have general conversations with folks about, because sometimes when you have the conversations, neither person is specialized. I'm not specialized in it. I can do as much YouTube, reading, all I want to know. I can give very general suggestions, yes, but the specific questioning is necessary with a therapist. And that's why a lot of people say, I can't afford a therapist. And that there's no therapist in my area. Yeah. But one of the amazing things is that people have to get serious with their mental health, because you don't want your traumas to process you.
And everything starts in the mind. Right. Everything you do when you get up and get dressed, in the mind. When you say, I'm going to the altar to serve God, it starts in the mind. Right. Everything starts in the mind before it gets to the heart. Right. And so if your mind is not right, your life is disturbed. It's just not going to flow. And so that's how important mental health is. And we as African American people, we're getting better in the last 20 years. Right. It is so much better. But you also have to realize that we've been through Black trauma. Right. That's embedded in us. And Black trauma is embedded in us. We are so lost. Where is our identity? They called us Negroes. They call us colored. They call us African American. They call us Black. And we're still trying to search, who am I?
We left out nigga.
And they call me, and so we've been called so many names. No other culture has been called so many names to identify us. And then sometimes when people are talking, that's why they feel lost. Because we've been through slavery and Jim Crow and civil rights.
I find myself stuttering sometimes and having a conversation. Somebody's like, like if I'm on the phone or if I'm looking, I'm to check off, am I African American? Am I black? Am I, these ideas of so many people when you think of our counterparts who have been just white the entire time.
That's it.
And we never realize how much that plays on your mind when you really have to question, like, who am I?
Absolutely. And subconsciously we hold that in our emotions. Mm-hmm. We hold that because we always been pushed around on this planet, even just in America, right, just with identifying ourselves.
Wow.
And so when you're trying to find yourself in that way, filling out an application, then you start feeling insignificant. Right. You don't tell anybody, and it's called hidden frustration.
Right.
Like, yeah, who am I? And you question it while you're trying to check it off.
And you don't realize subliminally you walk around for the rest of the day and you say to yourself, who am I?
And it bothers you.
Yeah.
And then you snap, and sometimes you don't understand why you're snapping, because certain things in life, it just shakes you up emotionally, but it's so silent and quiet.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good stuff right there. So I'm touching on so many things here because these are conversations I have consistently on the podcast, but like I said, we've never had somebody who specifies on these specific things.
Yeah.
What are some right now things that you feel will be after effects of the pandemic mentally? Because ideally we're still in it to an extent. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The world is open back up, but
our minds are on lockdown.
Right.
I think we're going through pandemic post-traumatic stress disorder, everybody, because we was on lockdown. And it was like we were prisoners in our own home. Could you imagine your mind trying to adjust to that for what, 15 months?
Right.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And that's for the entire world. So as I was watching the news, I was seeing people. I saw a Caucasian lady punch the flight attendant in the face, and she lost a couple of teeth.
I didn't see that.
Last week. That's that pandemic stuff. That's that frustration, and people are taking it out in the line at the store, and because we have not got rid of this energy and this feeling stress.
Right.
Our whole life has changed. Some people lost a lot.
People lost family members. We that trauma right there of losing family members during the pandemic, not being able to bury them correctly.
Yes.
And thinking of a lot of these people went to the hospital and they had to be by themselves, and the memory of that, you know what I'm saying, that of them being alone. Because I know, like, even you talking about being at home and your family member, luckily you do have amazing family members that were there to overserve you. I think, because I had a friend of mine that recently recovered slightly from COVID. He's still recovering. And last year his mom died of COVID. So being in a space that I'm talking to him, I know the fear of that moment of almost losing your life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like you said, that new level of gratitude that's there that people will have. But how can we as a people begin to deal with this current post-pandemic, what would I call it? Stress,
post-traumatic stress. And I think we should look for groups and be involved. We should try to just change some of the things. Like if you can go out. Exercise is one of the best things you can do because it really reshapes your brain and your thinking. Journaling. A lot of people don't like to journal. I was like, if you don't like to journal, talk on your phone. That's support, because I have a free grief group every fourth Monday of the month.
On Zoom?
And it's just on Zoom. It's just open up to the community. And one week we had maybe 40 people on there from all over.
I might have to bring my people in there.
All over.
I did a Zoom one time for people just to like express themselves because they have gone through so much. It's not just grief, but whatever, life traumas and stuff like that. And I was so overwhelmed.
Yeah, because it's three of us. We have three. I have three people.
We doing this. We coming to your group because I was on there, and it was almost like everyone was looking to me for an answer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna get back to y'all. I'm gonna check on my therapist and see what she say about this. Now I'm going into my therapy sessions, and I'm like, look. So this person went through this. What's your suggestions?
Yeah, you taking time from yourself. Yeah.
And you don't realize good. One thing for me. I'm realizing that like I didn't realize because people ask me all the time like, how do you feel now that you're dealing with being this person that people pour their I think it's gonna take time for me to really feel it. I don't feel. And I pray maybe God, I've also prayed God for strength to be able to deal with that. But like a lot of people, and I hear about pastors, they go through this and they carry all the stress. Some pastors do commit suicide.
Oh, yes.
13, 14, 15 pastors a year commit suicide specifically because of the traumas of having to take on other people's problems and realizing I can't solve it. I can't answer it. I can help you, give you faith, but that's the hardest part of it, is to sit with someone. And I'll be very intentional in this, to have to sit with someone and they're telling you about their a cancer diagnosis, to sit with them every day, talk to them on the phone, have conversations, to wish them the best, and they're like, thank you, then they pass away. And now the family members there, and you're sitting there with them, and it's almost this level of guilt because you know that slightly, you feel it. They're looking at you and they're like, where's your God now?
Yeah.
Where's your God now?
But you have to also pause and realize that is out of your control. You're here to support the person, and whatever happens is nothing you can do. And the shoulda, woulda, coulda, and I wish I had known, that's putting you in control.
Right.
And you're not in control. Right. And so when I talk to people about how to talk about death to their children, and, don't say granddad went to sleep and because now they're afraid to go to sleep. You have to explain to them that life is like a flower. And some flowers live short, and some flowers last a long time. And the motor stop. Just like a car. Make an example out of a car. You have a beautiful car. Drive down the street and the car shut down. It never work again. You have to get another car. But the motor stopped in that individual. So that means a hard stop. Whatever, just stop. And there's nothing you can do about it. And then when you listen to people, you have to practice that it's their issue, and you have to give it back to them to do the work.
Right.
So you could protect your peace.
Absolutely. Good. I got specific questions today for you.
Because I wouldn't last in this field that long, and because I specialize in grief and depression, I have to take naps. If I have people that I have grief all day, I have to take a nap, and then I go for a walk. Every time I finish with that day, I have to do that to regenerate myself, because you take in a lot, and because the body keeps score. The body will hold information too, so you want to release it. So you have to practice taking care of yourself, and self-care is gotta be when you're in this field.
Yeah, and we're even talking the simplest, because some people think I work out every day, and that's working out is important. That's great, but when we say the specific exercise of releasing those energies of sleep and taking walks, because that's a different kind of exercise. Taking walks puts you in a place of nature.
Yes.
Gives you an opportunity to be alone, because you're in the gym, it's noisy, it's loud.
Yes.
You're pumping muscles.
Yes.
You on your phone, you listening to music, so it's not as relaxing.
Gotta be relaxing.
So that's the relaxing exercise that's necessary.
That's right. You have to do it. It's for you to survive. And also, if you're in leadership position, you have to take breaks. if you're a leader, I did the God in Therapy tour in 2019. So I went around to different churches just talking to pastors about how to talk to their members, faith and mental health.
Yeah.
You know, certain things you don't say in the pulpit. You don't say those bipolar saints because you might have a room full of bipolar members. Right. And so I was talking to them about it. But also, if you're a minister, there's no way you should be preaching every Sunday. Your body is not designed for that. Right? You need to take a vacation quarterly if you're in leadership. Every 3 months, you need to get away.
Got me scared.
You need to.
I'm over here like, how am I gonna be on live 3 days a week?
But you need to get away at least quarterly or twice a year. But that's the way you do the rereads. I call it the rereads.
Yeah.
Regenerate, reset, revive, reconnect, restore, replenish.
Yeah. Replenish, renew.
The
rereads. Nah, that's good. So, now touching specifically on another mental health issue that people deal with that you just mentioned. So let's go there. Bipolar. How many people, if you had to say on a scale of, if you had to say out of 5, like 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, how many people do you think are really walking around here undiagnosed bipolar?
Oh, so 1 to 5, I would say about 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, dealing with being bipolar, because one thing is people have managed so well dealing with it that it's hard for them to even identify that I'm not bipolar. I was just mad. You know what I'm saying? Like so what are some signs of people who are questioning it? But
that manic, because you have those manic, because they used to call it manic depressive disorder, and then they changed to bipolar.
Right.
But bipolar, you have those swings. And what happens is the family see the swings. Right? And look what happens. If it gets too bad and it gets high, right? And the person is going shooting up the people at work.
Right.
They shooting up. And the thing about it is, with mental health, you can't really do much until something happens. And that's the part I have a problem with. And I always tell families, if you see something that's not right with your family member, get them help. If they allow you to, but when you get there, if they're adults, if they say no,
can't do anything.
The HIPAA rule.
So let's just say there are people out there who think, question, am I bipolar? What are some signs?
Mood swings. Isolation. Being super quiet and then all of a sudden escalating. Poor concentration.
Right.
Confusion. Thinking the world is against you.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a lot that could go on with bipolar.
Okay, cool. That's also good to know. Like people, these are specific questions. So I did take in some questions from some folks, and I literally they gonna watch this episode like, where my question at? So now dealing with relationships. Now, how do couples in this day and age, because relationships is something that you do know a lot about, how are couples nowadays able to deal with communication issues?
I think if they could kind of reduce social media some to work on your relationship. I think we have a lot of distractions.
Right.
And with those distractions, it interferes with your relationship.
Right.
So, and we always hear people say communication, but how do you communicate? And it's about having a simple conversation and learning the person that you're with.
Right.
A lot of times we know more about other people than we do the people that's close to us.
Right.
And so, I think we need to change some and just have more intimate conversation. I think having time alone.
Right.
I think learning how to, if you have children, learning how to hire a sitter
Right.
And just go and just do such simple things. You can go for a walk. You could do things that's not expensive.
Right.
You know, go for a walk, go out to dinner, have ice cream, have coffee, and ask questions. It's a great app, I think, is Got 'em Deck. And it's a lot of questions there, because some people tell me, I don't know what questions to ask. Well, you look through this app, and then you can ask some questions. How you doing today? How you feeling today? What do you think about me? What I think about you? What is love?
But it
just conversation.
Yeah, I think it requires a certain level of vulnerability and transparency as well.
That's
because
true.
anyone can ask these questions. Now, the answer is, are they going to answer it truthfully? Because
that's true.
It's so hard to answer some of these questions and be truthful because you're scared of the judgment that's normally comes with that.
That's good point.
And that's, for me, I think it's so important that real friendships are established in relationships. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at the root of everything, if there's a strong friendship, there's a level of honesty that you're willing to give without the fear of that person being injurious to you.
And I also think taking personality tests together to learn each other, like the 5 love language for couples, 16personality.com, and take those types of tests, and you could see the way you think,
right?
Because we all think different,
right? And we don't realize that.
We all think different.
We don't realize that. Like,
we try to make everybody think the same, and that's not healthy.
Yeah, because and I listened to this thing that Will Smith said that in relationships you want your partner to be the best version of themselves.
Yes,
because we want them to be the best version of what we want them to be, versus actually letting them blossom into the person they need to be. And a lot of times that looks like sometimes we enable because we don't want them to be their best version. It's not even that we don't want them to be the best version. We think that our version is the best version for them.
And you know what? We can't be in control of everything. Because when I first got married, my husband is a CPA. So he worked long hours, tax season. And then, he, with different promotions on his job. So he would work 10, 12 hours. And people would say to me, girl, your husband work all them hours. Ain't no way I can do that. But it's not you.
Right.
It's me.
Exactly.
And it's okay because our house was running fine. All the bills was paid. No complaint. But it was him the first half of our marriage. Now the second half of our marriage is me. I'm always going out. I'm doing the speaking. And I was thinking, if I had been negative when he was on doing his thing,
right,
it would have been hard for him to receive my time, because everybody has moments and seasons in their life. Mm-hmm. Everybody has, a different place and space in their life, and we just need to know how to respect it. So, like you said, vulnerability and being open to the process is so important.
Right. And how important is it for couples to have individual lives outside of themselves?
I think that's so important.
Yes. Because I think people can function great together for a long time, but they don't realize the codependency that is created. And then we also have to, codependency can be fine for a long time, but like you said, that 7-year change happens. And then after that, one person may be like, I actually like being by myself.
Yeah, and it's okay.
But because we're in codependency now, this actually triggers, if there's any traumas, it becomes levels of rejection. Oh, wait, this person doesn't want to be with me.
And that's not true. It's just a person changes and they just might need space. Mm-hmm. They just might. I had a couple one time and they came to me and they said, they was married for a long time, but things changed. And it was like, do you think it's wrong for us to get a 2-family house? Now, I wouldn't say that in public, no, because people was, no. So they bought a 2-family house. She had the first floor, he had the second floor. When they want to be together, they be together. But they was at the place in their life they needed space. There's nothing wrong with that.
Wow.
And so that's why, as a therapist, that's why I said we customize. We go to, because that was a need for them. Where other people, they would think that was wrong and they don't need it, then they wouldn't.
Right.
So everybody is different. So yeah, I think having that space, and one person might like tennis and another person might like basketball, and do your thing, meet with your guys, meet with the girls, and then come back.
Right. If you had to give advice to any couples as far as relational, what would be your advice for how to maintain a long-lasting relationship?
I would say have personal goals and couple goals. And I would say go through it. I think you should handle marriage like a business.
Right.
And love is there, but I think you should handle like a business and have goals.
Right.
And go over them every couple of months, every 6 months, go over them. And so with that, you would know because it's going to change.
Right.
Your goals might change in the next year or two. Right. And it might change every year.
Right.
But if you understand it, it's okay.
Right.
I think it's also good for you not to share your couple situation with outside people. Because there'll be too many opinions and too much to say about your marriage.
Right.
And every marriage is different. It's not the same. Every marriage is different. And I hear some people say, I want a marriage like my mother or father. No, you don't. You want a marriage like yourself, because your mother and father might stay home all the time and you both might travel.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. And this is the Unconventional Christians podcast, and I do have to I just have 2 questions before we wrap up. Sorry, let me lean into this. How important is it for us to keep God in the center of our relationships?
I think if we hadn't had God in our relationship, I don't know if we would have still been married.
Right.
Because one of the things we did from day one is we prayed together every day. Every day before we leave the house, we pray together. And if we was traveling, we would call each other that morning before the day started and pray. So I think prayer sustained us. Right. Because that faith just kept us covered, and we had that. We know that God will keep us. He will keep us safe and keep us with peace.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
How, in regards to mental health, what are some resources that you can suggest to people who do not have access to mental health?
Oh, good question. I would say go to NAMI.com,
Okay.
NAMI.com, and they have a whole lot of free support group listing there.
Right.
PsychologyToday.com. I would say just search and see if you can find a therapist there that you feel comfortable with. They have a lot of, just like I said, NAMI has a lot of free groups.
Okay.
And people that have reduced fee. And then there's clinician.org, clinicianofcolor.org. There's all clinicians of color. Right. Those are resources. I have the grief group every 4th Monday. Well, we won't have it in July, but every 4th Monday, free.
Every fourth
so Monday at 7 o'clock.
So that's this Monday coming up, right?
We had it last Monday. So the next go round,
I need a private session.
The next one will be June the 20. In June.
Okay.
And so and we just open it up to the public free, and we start off like we talked about grief triggers last week.
Right.
Sometimes I have guests there. I had Dr. Ajetta Robinson, who wrote the book Grief is a Gift.
Right.
So I had her on there talking about how to navigate. So we just want to present that to the community, because the community do need support, and everybody doesn't have money, and we get that. Right.
We come from a community where, unfortunately, unlike our counterparts, death is an everyday thing, and we're talking about death from sickness, death from violence, death, just sudden deaths in general. We have COVID deaths, we have health-related deaths. So now dealing with, how. Yeah, and this last question, how does our community begin to deal with grief?
By getting support, by writing things down, journaling, by coming to terms with your grief and feeling the pain. Don't let it slide, feel it, because it's going to come like an ocean or a wave. Self-help books, get books, talk to someone. But definitely, if you can find free groups, grief groups and support groups, go to that. Talk to a good friend. Get it out of you, because it's not good for us to hold things in us, because we implode.
Right. Okay. And I have our rapid questions for you. This is how we.
Oh, okay.
This is how we wrap every single guest. Okay. So, Luther or Anita?
Anita.
Rose or tulips?
Tulips.
Catfish or whiting?
You can't say both. Gotta say one or the other.
One or the other.
Whiting.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
I did not expect that from you. I definitely did not expect
that. I love
the
boots and the coat.
Because you're very fashionable. And I forgot to mention that I specifically wore these. I don't wear these every day. Because I saw that you have a plethora of
I love glasses.
frames. Okay. Okay. If we're in a don't laugh situations, what's making you laugh out loud?
And we're in a don't laugh situation. What make me laugh out loud?
Could be your husband. Is he funny? Who is someone that, or it could be somebody who could pull that out of you in a moment that's like, it's so solemn you wouldn't even expect it.
I can't answer that question.
Okay, we'll skip that one. Top travel destination?
Hawaii.
How many times you been there?
Once, and I like Alaska too.
You like Hawaii and Alaska?
Yeah.
Dress or pantsuit?
Pantsuit.
Yoga or dance class?
Dance class.
Last book you read?
The last book I read, I read so many. That's what I read. Healing is a Choice.
Healing is a Choice. And skincare secret?
Olive Olay.
Oil of Olay? Okay, so in this Unconventional Christian Podcast, one thing we always do is we always pray our way out. But I will ask you before we do, this is our bonus question. What makes you an unconventional Christian?
What makes me an unconventional Christian is because I think outside the box. I'm able to share any kind of conversation with anyone. And I'm non-judgmental, and I'm proud of that.
Fire. Thank you. So, you are a person of faith, and I would love for you to pray us out of here.
Oh, sure. Sure. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time, this moment, and this space. God, I pray for Ladun and his organization. And God, I pray that the people that's listening, that you will allow healing to take place in their body, in their mind, and their spirit. God, we thank you for this time and this moment, and we pray that you would continue to bless, heal, deliver, and move in our lives. Keep us in the center of your hand. Allow us to walk with you, and and we want you to let us know that you are closer than the breath we breathe. We thank you and we honor you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Dr. Hardy. We appreciate you having you on the Unconventional Christian Podcast, and we look forward to talking to you again on here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.